Okay, this morning we have Ted and Gwen Nyman with us, and they are going to talk to us about the history of the land of the Nipigon waterways and the walking trail, from the inception and Ted's idea to maybe to the present day. Okay, Ted, you're on.
Well, I guess the idea started some 30 years ago at least, and it was a case of me traveling from Nipigon to work at Cameron Falls and on, then from there up to Pine Portage. And while I was sitting in the vehicle driving up there, I noticed all these nice little spots along the way, can't remember the name of the Jesse Lake, and I thought that would be a good spot for people to come and have a little picnic beside Jesse Lake. And some of these areas were already being used by local people, and I thought just fix them up a little bit. That's all they needed. Such as at the Birch Point, they needed improvement to the to put your boats in, and Pine Portage the same thing. It had a boat launch in place there, but it was pretty shabby in that there. And I thought by cleaning it up and putting a picnic table there, people at least could come, sit down, have a coffee, and enjoy the afternoon there. And I guess that's started my vision of developing something. I believe that's when it took place anyway. Well, from that vision then it started to kind of snowball on me. I started to get too many things into my mind and I didn't know which way to go. So as I thought these things up, I'd bring them home to Gwen and I'd mention it to her, and she would say, well, let's go back and have a look at it. So we, in our spare time, would go back and have a look, and she would come up and she'd put it all down on paper then, what should be there and what should be done. So
then we drew the map.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then I shouldn't say I think Gwen drew the map, and we carried on with that for a while. And we took the map and presented it to the Ministry of Natural Resources, who at that time they didn't have anything like that in their plans and weren't too interested in it. So later on, I tried again, and with the map and with a little more information then of what we wanted, I presented it to a member of Parliament, and
what was his name?
His name was Jack Stokes. Was our member of Parliament at the time. He said that started to steer us in the direction of Ontario Hydro, who are paying a water rental for water going through the plant here, and which there's a fund where there's $1 million goes into, and or maybe more even. I'm not sure now. It was on a percentage thing for the water.
It was water rental, wasn't it?
It was water rental, yeah.
And I think Jack Stokes said $1 million went into the government coffers, and then they used some of that water rental money for...
Well, they used it at what they call the Niagara Parkway. And we got the idea, well, look, if they can use the money for a parkway in Niagara area, why not use it up here, the Nipigon Parkway? We kind of come up with that idea.
So then Jack went to the House of Parliament, the Ontario legislature, and he gave a speech, and it's recorded in Hansard, and we've still got a copy of it. He gave us a copy of his actual words, and he was saying, why don't you use some of that money to develop the Lake Nipigon, the Nipigon River corridor, all the way to Lake Superior, the whole thing, and they using hydro water rentals, just as you did for Niagara. We deserve the same in the north. And then that idea caught on around here. People got so excited, didn't they? I think people wrote stories, didn't they, in the newspaper?
Yeah, I think it took people. That's one thing that we had decided. Our committee, or such as it was in those days, it was pretty small, but we decided that you have to get the people on your side. You have to have the towns buying into it. You have to have the politicians buying into it, and so therefore we started to steer our attention in towards how do we get people interested in it, and people like Glenna, who wrote articles on it, the News Chronicle, and Thunder Bay paper, and we had interviews with the radio stations in Thunder Bay come down. They were interested in it, so things started to look pretty bright there for a while. And while being new at this whole thing, it took me a while to get used to this. You present something, but don't expect it to happen tomorrow, because you're dealing with politicians, with the government and that, and it takes months, maybe even years in some of our things that we were trying to do.
So in 1985, that's 5 years have already passed on all that beginning stuff, and still it's going nowhere, but Ted's idea is now alive and well. And so he was asked to draw up a formal proposal that he gave to the Economic Development Committee.
Yeah, well, I presented a formal development of what we want, what we wish to have, and we hired the committee hired Wally Emmett as.
And you followed the Nipigon River.
Oh, Nipigon River Corridor Working Group was formed. That's right, the Nipigon River Corridor, and the member. I can read off the members of that were Jack Stokes, myself, Sally Abbott, Millie Barrett, chair, David Crawford, and Cal Postanski, Doug Mowat. Oh, Sally Abbott was treasurer, by the way, and
you're going to wonder where did this committee manage to get money from? Well, they got the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines. That was Doug Melville. He was really supportive of this idea. He gave a grant of $1,800 from his government agency, and Nipigon gave $400, and Dorian gave $200, and they said it was an act of faith. They were giving it to show an act of faith. So that's the money. That was the startup money. And so that's 85, and now we're into 1987. Another 2 years have passed.
after we got government officials interested, officials had actually been up to the Cameron Falls. We have to get the politicians more interested in the area, so we hired a bus and invited politicians and other interest people, Reeves from Dorian, Hurkett, and Red Rock, and Nipigon.
And federal government, members of parliament.
Federal government.
And provincial.
We took them on a bus ride up to Alexander.
Gene Jones was the bus driver, if you remember right. Gene Jones. And Glenna, you went on that bus ride. Do you remember it?
Yeah. Bruce Pritchard was part of that too.
Yeah, Bruce Pritchard.
And from that, I guess a consultant was hired as a result of that, of that bus tour. The Ministry of Northern Development and Mines, which ended up, we received $250,000 would be available for this project to retain professional and assistance to carry out the program to include Lake Nipigon.
And how did you feel when you got a check for $250,000?
Well, I still remember the day. I still get a little nervous. I thought, what are we going to do with $250,000? Well, little did I know that when you start making trails and fixing things up, it don't take long to whittle that away. And And we managed to do that too. I believe some of that, as you said, it was the feasibility study was also included Lake Nipigon, and I think we ended up, we had a little bit of money left over, and it was given to Beardmore to develop their waterfront.
Yeah. So this feasibility study, this consultant, I think he took up most of the money,
Yeah.
and all he decided after a whole year for $250,000, practically, that company decided that there was enough interest and enough people coming through Nipigon, counting on the highway and everything, that it would make it worthwhile to develop tourism in this area. So he looked at the whole tourism for the area and decided it was worthwhile. And Bruce Pritchard then was our economic development officer, who was working out of the tourist information.
Yep. Anyway, the $250,000, as I said, I was quite nervous about it, yeah, and we brought it to Nipigon Council. We had this money, and they wouldn't give us the money because we weren't registered or organized as a committee, because they needed somebody that had a little more
Honest.
well, yeah, I guess you can see they didn't trust us, I guess.
Reliable, yeah.
Anyway, whatever it was. But anyway, as it was, we, sorry about this. We received the money because, well, yeah, we weren't a municipality. But anyway, we brought it to the Reeve Brennan and council to have them to look after the money. And because we couldn't look after it, and we had other people around, so we went to them and showed them what we had with the maps and what we had, and other governments that approved it, and we had this money, and they said, the Reeve Brennan at the time said they would not look after the money. Well, our old hearts just dropped because we were counting on them taking it over and looking after the money. But needless to say, Doug Mowat was at the meeting, and before they hardly got it out of their mouth, he said, Red Rock will look after it. And so they took the money and looked after it while we done our little projects along the way there.
Following the feasibility report, it was decided the feasibility report gave many phases, and this was phase 1, and they decided we now had to hire somebody to design a plan to develop Lake Nipigon all the way to Lake Superior. And so they decided the first bit of that would be to develop Nipigon to Red Rock waterfronts. That would be the first part of this big thing. And so they hired...
Yeah, well, for the feasibility study, we hired Moore, George, and Associates to develop an official plan, and they done an excellent job. And at this time, we changed our name to the Nipigon River Parkway. We changed it to, and we had what do you call them? I call them show and tell, where you invite people to come and look at your map and all that. What do they call that? I can't remember now.
Just had
Anyway,
a general meeting, yeah.
I call it show and tell, and we had the consultants there to answer questions in regards to what we proposed and that. And we had around 60, 70 people that showed up, and it was a very positive meeting from the people that attended it.
And now we're into 1990. So in 1992, Ted made a big announcement. They had to become very formal, and so the Land of the Nipigon Waterways Development Association Incorporated was formed in 1992, and that was the beginning of this whole idea of managing tourism in this area. So it wasn't just the trail, it also included the tourist information, doing the interior of that, the signs with the sun, that we used to have for the Land of the Nipigon, and all the different signage, Dorian, Red Rock, Nipigon. signs. So it's a whole master idea that also fell under the land of the Nipigon at that time.
And I guess I think it was at that time too, we changed our name again. Land of the Nipigon Waterways Development Association. And we had to do that to become officially a committee, which I was chairman of. Some of the members of there, I can read them off to you here. And Jim McCullough, John Zechner, Brian Davis, Lloyd Roy, Don McAlpine, Lillian Walters, Anita Lang, Sally Oppen, Howie Shavoyer, Gina Barnes, Mark Harris, George Shirowski, Judy Bernard, and I think that was the start of our fairly big committee, though. Then the work on phase one began on Nipigon to Red Rock. We started on our phase one of it.
Now you can tell them what happens when you go to develop a trail from Nipigon to Red Rock over a mountain when there's no trail and all the challenges.
I would like to wind it up there. The first part, can we wind up there? And
That's
then we'll
good.
do the next part.
Yeah,
Okay.
very good.
Okay, this is part two. We're back with Ted and Gwen. Now we're into the actual blazing of the trail. Ted used the word implementation. And it's the work and the challenges that was involved in getting the trail created from Nipigon to Red Rock or Red Rock to Nipigon, whichever way you would like to put it.
Yeah, I guess to get things moving, we had to contact landowners, and some of these landowners were down in the United States. One person in Germany who we contacted, and they wrote us back and sent us, give us permission to cross their property. We also had to get verbal permission from other landowners such as Domtar, or it wasn't Domtar at the time, whatever company owned Red Rock at the time.
Maybe Narampak at that time.
Narampak, I guess it was. We have to get liability insurance for people walking the trail, and not only for the people there, the people working. We had to get liability. We had to find a route across the mountain, and so we got together a few people, which I'll give you. Tokyo Okawa, we got him to come with us, and
John
John Zechner, myself, and I can't remember who else was in there. But anyway, we went through and blazed the trail through there, and it was Tokyo Okawa, I guess, that really showed us where to stick to the areas that weren't going to get flooded as bad or were easiest to go by. Stillwater Creek, we had Stillwater Creek, we had to build a bridge across there, and we had to get the material from Red Rock. It was old trusses from the separate school that we had hauled in by herd into Nipigon for us to use there, and it was Tim Messervier. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself here.
Yeah. First of all, those timbers were for that no-name creek later on, remember?
That was no name.
Stillwater was Donnie Nichols, wasn't it?
Yeah, no. Donnie Nichols put the bridge across Stillwater Creek. He had to come in from the road going down
Matters Road.
Matters Road. He had to haul everything in with big machinery, and to build that bridge for us. And we must have got a grant for that, but
you got I think somewhere I've got written down. You got
I don't know what the cost of it was.
It was $75,000 was part of a larger grant that they got for this beginning bit, but it's amazing. I saw in the notes the other day that they decided they were going to make the trail 4 meters wide. How wide did you make it?
8 feet.
So
I don't go in meters.
but still very wide. Like Ted used to take his lawnmower, he could go up and down with it.
In places where I could get
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
I take my own lawnmower and
Yeah.
do it. But in a lot of places you couldn't. I went,
So then they got this $75,000
there it is right
was
there.
released, and they began making the trail once it had been blazed through by Toki and that. But you didn't go upstairs. There was no stairs up to Eagles Ridge like there is these days. So how did you get up over that mountain to start with?
well, we went down along, actually just parallel to the CPR and CNR railroad track, and then we made a cut right up through a rock cut. And when you got in there, it was all different vegetation in there because it was never got any sun in there whatsoever. And to make it a little easier, we put ropes in there for people to hang on to go up or come down, which made it much easier. But we knew I won't get ahead of myself here.
But that was the best bit of the trail. Do you remember it?
I know. I went
You
on
got
that trail
there,
too.
and there was this big cliff face in front of you, and this rope hanging down. And if you weren't athletic, it was hard. So you hung on, and your feet went up just like you see them in movies. You walked up here, and you finally got to the top to this amazing view from Eagles Ridge. It was just awesome. And it's too bad you don't go that way now from Stillwater and up through the gut, because you'd really feel you've accomplished anything. However, walking up 100 steps is probably good too.
So Gwen, just made me think, who named that Eagle Ridge?
I don't know, I think it might have been Jim McCullough.
Okay,
I'm not
I-
sure.
I'm not sure.
Jim was naming things all along the trail, so
Right.
we've got No Name Creek, but he's got another name, and for the heck of me, I can't remember what it is now, but Halfway
Okay.
Creek maybe now. But we got that $75,000 was part of a larger grant, but we also got $50,000 from Community Futures, $25,000 from the Unemployment Insurance Council to hire 5 labourers to clear the trail, and 4,000 to 4,500 was raised in the community, and Rotary and Ducks Unlimited and Mawson's Brewers, they all gave money in a young students program to work on the trail. But the two of your sons worked on that trail, that first trail, that those 5 people. How long did it take? Do you remember? It
I just know Ted and Todd worked in there. It was quite cool by the fall, because you had that gator machine that used to go back
That's
and forth.
right.
And I remember it was still cool in the fall when
and
they worked there.
they blazed a half decent trail through to Red Rock, and then came all the problems once you were through that.
I think that you should, that money that we also, as Glenna just said, that we hired people. Well, we hired a lot of students to work there during the summer, which our committee we had to assign people from a committee to supervise them while they were working in there for the summer. So a lot of our volunteers would spend a summer just looking after students in that area to make sure that they didn't hurt themselves or anybody else.
Yeah, I can remember Ted running in from Beardmore because it was his days to supervise the students. And I said to him once, I said, do you ever regret having that idea? Because you gave up like all your summers and all the time on this trail for years and years and years, but you don't regret it at all, do you?
Pardon me?
You don't regret the trail.
No, I don't.
He said
Nope.
he told me I enjoyed every moment of it, every moment of that trail.
It's a lot of fun working with volunteer people because they come there with no chip on their shoulder. They're there to help and improve things. And I found that we never had an argument with anybody there. And it was very easy to work with people. I enjoyed every bit of it.
We talk about the people who supported it. We got money, but we got people like Jim Nichols who brought you all those loads of gravel, didn't he, and for the causeway,
Yeah.
and different people like that who helped help move the thing along without having all this money.
A warehouser who helped us with a lot of the chips to put on the trail, which was free, and their cores they had left over. We used them for making signs on the trail too. So they helped us a lot too, and a lot of different ways people help, but I can't remember them all.
So do you remember like how did you have someone in particular pay for that lookout out on the causeway? Like was that, or remember the stairs that are there with the little lookouts?
Okay, first of all, the Legion Causeway. So first of all, you better start with the troubles on how to get this trail in, and then we'll get up to that
Okay.
then. Okay. First, what did you contacted the landowners, and that we did that.
Cliff, that's not fair.
So here are all your problems here.
There's problems with anything you do.
Yeah,
so.
Causeway was Jim Nichols, and the M&R who designed the causeway. The reason we had to put the causeway in because we were too close. We were on CNR property, so we had to move it out. We had to get permission from the M&R to go and build a causeway. Well, they come and they designed it for us, and in a way that it was going to attract fish along there. They had us dump rocks further out than what the causeway would be. So we had them working with us very closely.
And they didn't they put culverts in to make water behind it somehow?
Yeah, we had.
Yeah.
Well, there was a space in between the railroad track and the causeway, and that was supposed to water flow into there and allow small fish to go in and spawn. As it is now, it's all growing in. It's just part of the bush there now.
And along the causeway too, they put that platform. It's called the Legion platform. It's dedicated to them because the Legion gave $5,000 towards the trail too, I believe. So that's why,
Yeah.
and that's how helped to build that platform. And that was Brucey Atkins who
Yeah.
built that platform. And he used to come back every year and check to see if it moved a little bit. And it's so stable, like 30 years later, it's still as solid as all get out. What building, yeah. And then you came to Stillwater. That was the problem, to build that bridge.
That was Donnie Nichols who hauled all the stuff in by tractor and all that and built that bridge. It was a big project too, but we basically we contracted it out, and all we done was go there and watch. After it was finished, we hired summer students to come in and stain all the wood on there. So we had to put tarps underneath so we didn't get any of the stain into the water and that. So it was quite a job there, quite a bit of work there.
And then you got to there.
Well, the stairs, that was Brucey Atkinson, and that was a big job. To get all the lumber in there, the lumber was all hauled to, I keep forgetting that road up there.
Matters Road.
And they dumped it all there, and we hauled it from there to where the trail it comes out right now, and then from there, Brucey Atkinson had to haul it, so he made another trail around, so he come out right to the bottom where the stairs go up, and he had all his stuff hauled to there by Jeep. He had a Jeep that he rented, and he winched everything in, and then him and I can't remember his friend that worked with him, but they built a slew,
A slide or something.
a sliding thing that they could hook on maybe 4 or 5 pieces of 2x6 and then winch it right up halfway of these stairs that you see in the background here. And they made a platform there and made like a little shelf there, and that was their work quarters right from there. And they done an excellent job, the two of them.
When you think it was just huge boulders and loose rock, and they got those stairs, and again, stable for all those years, they haven't budged. That was a real engineering feat
Did you have a grant for those stairs?
Well, it was all part of that 75,000.
Oh, 75, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how much went towards the start. I don't know what.
Right.
I don't know where the money went.
Right, right.
I had nothing to do with that.
Now, there was another creek, the one that I call No Name, that Jim McCullough might call Halfway. And
Yeah.
one day, there were lots of little trails in the bush that Howie Shaboy had made before this trail was ever in existence. And so it was kind of lots of little creeks and swamps. And one year there was a big flood, and a beaver dam higher up a creek had let go, and it came down, it washed out the trail. So they had to put another bridge in. Well, that was a job in itself. What did you use for that? That was the Red Rock.
That was the Red Rock stuff,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
already explained
Well,
to him there.
It was the rafters, wasn't it, from
Yeah, the rafters,
From the-
choices.
the Red
yeah,
Rock
that-
School?
Yeah, I already talked about that though.
And-
But we had for going back to haul the lumber in there, we had the snowmobile club. They had a groomer, and we had them haul it for us from Matters Road into the bottom of the trail there. And I still remember that we were going up the hill, and the sleigh tipped over. And thought we were going to have to unload all this lumber and haul it by hand. But we managed to get it tipped right enough to skitter up to where we wanted it. But we got it in there eventually. But this all takes time. Like, you don't do it in a day. It takes weeks. So I guess that's why the time went so fast. Other than that, after that, I guess we spent our time removing trees, danger trees, and making things a little better. Once we seen people were using the trail, and a lot of older people, we thought, well, we got to improve the trail so that these people can find it much easier to travel on. And I guess that's where when the stairs come into it, to make stairs. Now, I don't know if that's easier to climb those stairs or the rocks. I'm not sure, but I guess it is much easier. And it's easier coming down anyway.
So did Red Rock have a hand in their side? Because
That's just what I was going to
say
tell
Lloyd's Lookout, of course,
Yeah.
is well known, so they must have done something.
you.
on that
That's
side.
exactly what I was thinking about, because Lloyd Roy was doing the hill up to Lloyd's Lookout, and that was
Right.
named after him. And Ches Imhoff took over that in the end, and he did he kept that hill going up to Lloyd's Lookout, and the next one, which is the Nipigon Bay Lookout. There's two
Right.
lookouts there, and he even put a little toilet on the side and a bench for people to sit on and all that. So Red Rock was doing their end as far as the Nipigon Bay Lookout. Then after that, it was sort of all managed from the other end.
And I do
Yeah,
think that Red Rock end is well used by the Red Rock
Yeah.
people up as far as Lloyd's Lookout. It's just a nice walk
Oh.
for a lot of people
Yeah.
to go there because of the view too.
And from Roy's Lookout up to Eagles Ridge, there's another set of bridge there.
Stairs.
And that was done on the Red Rock side. Those stairs were all built by Brucey Atkinson too.
okay.
So
And then it was nice because then Parks Canada put their red chairs up there, which was another little piece that added interest, and people went up there
Yeah,
for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an amazing feat getting that trail through. Really, some of the most rugged land in Canada, as we know from even building the Trans-Canada Highway in the autumn days, and even just getting that little bit done.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Well, I just think that you have given us an amazing snapshot of the trails today, and that's a lot of information, and I think it's certainly worth the fact that we now have it on tape and it's preserved, because some of the things would get lost if you and Ted did not put it down on tape for us.
If it wasn't for volunteers and the good people that donated, we wouldn't have a trail today. And I thank them all.
We thank you. So So you could tell that this trail was a very long project, and we're back again for the third part with Ted and Gwen. And we wanted to mention that between them is a photo that Baggy took and mounted, and Ted had it given to him as a gift. And it is the stairway that was built by Bruce Atkinson to replace the rope that people were using to get up and down with. So Ted will tell us about some of the other parts of the trail that were worked on.
Yeah, we had many projects going on there. Some all at the same time, some different time. But we had Alexander Landing, where we had a lookout plan there to look out down the river, and we have to move it from where we originally wanted to put it and move it down to where it is now, which is actually a better spot. We get a picture from the lookout at Alexander towards the hydro plant and down the river, and it's an excellent place to go fishing. Apparently a lot of people go there and fish and do catch fish. People have seen them catching fish there, and when we go there, we can see where they've clean fished down on the rocks or so forth.
I think this was dedicated, it's called the Jack Stokes Memorial Landing, actually, right, because he was the instigator of all of this. Without him mentioning it in Parliament, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so that landing, Alexander Landing, and when it was being dedicated to him, he had passed away, but we had the official opening. In the background, somebody was in a boat and they caught a salmon at the same time. It was so appropriate at that moment. Yeah.
I think Jack was he sat on our committee for many years. He used to stop in on his way home from Toronto, from the Parliament buildings, and stop in and sit in our meetings with us many occasions. Now, the other place that we had was Split Rock, which is just signed with a trail going in about a half a mile at the most, which is it's a nice lookout. It's a very nice. It's a Nipigon River where there's a big island and the water goes on either side of the island down there, and which are very high there. But we have to put ropes in there for people to make it a little easier.
But isn't Split Rock the area too where the
Pardon me?
Where the Split Rock is the area where the brook trout was caught?
Well,
in that area of the river.
Apparently, yeah.
Yes, up in that area. So people like to see that part, I think, of the river too, Ted.
Yeah. And then we had Ducks Unlimited, and that entailed building lookouts for looking for birds, watching birds or other animals and that. And we had one at Stillwater Creek, and one just outside Nipigon. Here we have a lookout there on the marsh there. The viewing towers over the marshes, they were used quite a bit to start with. Now lately, I don't know if they're underwater or
they're still used
or what.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Stillwater blind we had. And
that bird blind, you can actually go in it and sit and look at the birds on Stillwater. You don't realize how many birds come during migration to the Nipigon River.
It's on
area.
the corner of the river.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Right
there.
on the corner.
Yeah, very nice there.
Yeah. And of course, it's ongoing for years, removing trees, flooded trails, and routine maintenance on a trail. It takes a lot of work, a lot of people, and before this was all done by volunteers, and we spent a lot of time on the trail to people and that were volunteers.
So the latest part I can just add for the trail is that it was underwater because of the high water on Lake Superior. And so this summer, which is 2019, Michael Elliott had those students and they made a bypass of the wet spot. But Michael told me 22 truckloads of gravel were brought into there. and packed into a new trail, plus covered over the water, so that it is changed a little bit there. But that's one of the updates. As you're saying, things have to be updated all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So it's in much better shape now for the hike this weekend.
That marshland and the low water, and especially going where it used to be the old mill at Sawmill Point. That was all the bark from that mill. The trail was over that, so that just kept eroding every year. The trail was always being eroded, and Jim McCullough would come and fix up the holes all the time. He was looking after that area a lot. And then later, of course, Michael Elliott joined the group and started
So
on.
it's ongoing maintenance. Ted is right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he said. It's ongoing.
So the trail officially opened in 1995, but the Land of the Nipigon Waterways group didn't end until after 2010, and I don't know exactly what time it did end. So Ted was the chair, and then Ted retired, and Don McAlpine took over for a couple of years, and then he didn't want to do it anymore, so I took over, and I was chair for a while, and then Lisa Nyman, our daughter-in-law, took over. Kind of a family affair, this, wasn't it? And it got to the point where we didn't have enough volunteers to work and keep that committee going anymore. And so in the end, we had become an incorporated committee, and we couldn't just end the committee because it was incorporated. So we had to learn how to unincorporate a committee. And so sometime after 2010, the committee was disbanded, and the townships of Nipigon and Red Rock, and I don't know if Dorian's in there too, the Tri-Town Council, they took over the managing of the trail, and they hire Michael Elliott every year to keep the trail open now. So that's a different concept, and it's a lot more stable concept because they can manage it as a whole, and that also eliminated us, the Land of the Nipigon Waterways, having to raise money every year to pay for the railway crossings, having to pay every year $2,000 or $3,000 for insurance that now falls under the town insurance, and so we're way further ahead with it becoming a community trail rather than a volunteer incorporated group running the trail. It was just getting to be just too much. Even just staining the material, you know how much that costs to do things like that.
So you're going to tell us, Gwen, a little bit about the behind the scenes and other things that went along with the trail.
Well, this is kind of strange because this was kind of the men's job. So you had people like when the flooded creek at No Name Creek, you had Tim Mercervier and Terry Wright and Jim McCullough and Michael Elliott and all those, just all the men went in to do it. Women were not in the picture. All of this was all male. But there were women who were just as busy behind the scenes. Lillian Walter
Yes.
and Anita Lang did lots. And myself, of course, I guess I was in there too a little bit. And we had excellent treasures. We had Sally Orbit for year in, year out. She was just the brick that held us up financially. And then when she retired, Judy Bernard took over. And then Brenda DeRoche took over. And I don't know who we ended up with in the end, but I think it went to the town then. So all that was going on. You needed a good financial person to run all this money as well, all the way through. And always applying for grants. And I know Lisa and Brian Davis worked together Lisa Nyman, when she was present. They got a big Trillium grant, and they did the next part of the trail, which is up the Red Rock Mountain.
Howe
Mountain. So that was all part of Land of the Nipigon Waterways, and that happened when Lisa Nyman was chair and Brian Davis was the main driving force behind the Howe Mountain Trail. I don't know how much that is used. I think it's a pretty tough trail, that one. But they've got a lookout at the top built by Miko Lesby, I
Michael
think.
Elliott just recently did some work on it too.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
So
he did.
he's keeping that in condition too.
So that's
Yes.
huge.
Yes, I was
you know.
talking to him this
Yeah,
week.
and I think they maybe get more from the National Marine Conservation Area because it's right on Nipigon Bay and part of Lake Superior, so they can sort of take care of that, I think, a little bit. But besides that, we needed pamphlets, and so we had pamphlets designed by Lillian using her good English and her correct grammar, and we had one of the Koski girls, Faye or Fawn, the twins, I don't know which one, maybe Fawn, designed all the first bulletin. We had pictures and that, and then we had a second one when we got the stairs in. We had to do a new pamphlet because that changed the trail. So we also did a historical little pamphlet that people could have telling the history of the trail, and it's still available somewhere. I think the town must have all those pamphlets. And then we had a fundraiser. The M&R let us use a big map of Lake Nipigon, and we had it printed, 5,000 of them. Oh my goodness. And it was a huge one, twice the size of that. Great big map of Lake Nipigon. And I went around to all the local communities, Geraldton and Thunder Bay, and had people buy bunches of them and sell them. And we were going to sell them at $20. We got down to $10. I think finally we got down to $6. I don't know. But we
still made money.
We made about $15,000 in just the advertising because people put all their ads, their businesses on the back, and so that was very lucrative because we sold the squares for like $200-300 a square. So we did quite well on that. And then we decided one year we were thought we could raise money by having a hike across the trail from Nipigon to Red Rock and back. So the Morning Star was run by the Dampiers, Maureen and Jack Dampier, and they had the boat, and they said they'd help us out with that. And so you could either take a bus or the Morning Star to Red Rock and then come back by hiking the trail. So we had, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 people that time. I don't know how many. And they just gave donations. It wasn't, and we thought, boy, this is really good. We can make money that way. So we decided we needed to have it to go, and do it again another year. So then Glenn Harris was in Rotary at that time, and his mother, Marg Harris, was a really, really active member of the Land of the Nipigon Waterways Committee, which came from Dorian. So Marg talked to her son, Glenn, who was in insurance in Thunder Bay, and she said this, and he said, you know what, we'll get Rotary involved with this as well, and we'll make $100,000 a year. So our eyes bulged. And so we started designing a hike for health along with Rotary. So the second year when we did the hike, then it became a hike for health, and we did it with within the Rotary and the Nipigon, and now Rotary, I think, runs it mostly now. Right. So that was a fundraiser for years, and we always got like 5 years. One year we had 400 hikers, and we raised about $11,000 or $12,000 the 1 year, because we did it as a fundraiser to make money to maintain the trails. That's kept us going year in and year out. And then we had interpretive signs put along the big boards, the one on the marsh and the one telling the history of the indigenous people, all different interpretive signs throughout and we had an artist from Thunder Bay who also worked out of California. She had 2 studios, and she did work even for the Smithsonian Institute. So those signs were really valuable. And I see they're not up now, so I don't know what happened to them. It's too bad. But they were put up there. And then we had to tell people which way to go on the trail, because people were always getting lost. Because Howie Shibuya had his trails going, and we had our trails, and so people would take the wrong turn. I've done it myself 2 or 3 times. So we had our summer students make signs, and they used to write Nipigon with an arrow, and we put those all up on along the trail. And then we had other summer students write, do work looking at the fauna and the flora and making signs, but that never got put actually onto the trail, but they did that too, the summer students. So all in all, as long as the men were doing all that, the women were very, very busy doing all these pamphlets and things like that.
We had an agreement with the women. They don't bother us, we won't bother them.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I think that's basically it, as far as I can remember.
And I think the Hike for Health has raised a lot of money over the years, but it's developed now also into a healthy hike.
Yeah.
Encouraging people to take part as part of the health movement that is on now. So
He's laughing at me because of something that
It is.
really bugs me. Because we needed a name for our hike, and I can remember lying in bed thinking, oh, what can we call it? Hike for your health. Your health. Hike for it. Hike for your health. And I thought, oh, that's too long. Hike for your health. It's not clippy. And if you're going to advertise it, you need something clippy. So I changed it to Hike for Health. And then it became Hike for Health, the wider concept of
Right.
the Cancer Society, the Nipigon Hospital, and all
Yeah.
those sorts of things. So it got a much better cause than your own personal health. But I was just thinking of get out there.
right.
So I think our committee was too, just thinking health, my health.
Right. Yeah. It's developed into a very popular event. and
Yeah.
everybody
But it
looks
turned out
forward.
okay.
And it's really successful now, and people are doing it for a different reason now,
Right.
and they're not using it as a fundraiser as much.
Right.
But that was a big thing.
Right. Hike for Health.
Yes. How many years has it gone on now? 20-something years? 25?
I'm not sure. I meant to look that up, and I haven't looked it up. So
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 years now, it's changed again because the people who were running it before wanted to change, and so now, and I'm in favor of that. Is you turn in all your pledges by Friday, and the prizes are given out before
That's true.
the hike, so that. If I want to go on Saturday, I can take 3 hours if I want. But I can remember George Jarosky running it in a half an hour.
That's right.
You know, and then he had to wait for 3 hours for people to come in. So it's evolved into maybe a different format, but I think it's still as popular as ever.
Yes, it was always, when we ran the Hike for Health, it was always a problem because people came from Thunder Bay and they finished and they had to stay there till 3 o'clock getting prizes, and they didn't want to sit in the wherever we were.
I've got pictures on some of those albums, and there's Ted and Brian leaning against a vehicle, and I figured out they're waiting for the last people to come in. Ted was always at the end, right?
Yeah.
Ted was always the person who came at the end to make sure
Yeah.
everybody got through. So
Yeah.
it's evolved into a wonderful thing, that's for sure.
And talking about people who helped, you see, the ski club joined that too. The Nipigon Ski Club, Nipigon Red Rock, I don't know what they call themselves. They, with Rob Swainson, that group, and Chris Leal, they came in and they did a lot of the watching the people on the Hike for Health. So the Hike for Health was another big spin-off to the Land of the Nipigon Waterways, but now it is no longer. But for all those years, 30 years or more, it was a very active part of this community.
An amazing story this morning, done in 3 parts, due to Ted and Gwen Nyman. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.